In Night City, becoming a mercenary is a dangerous path to follow, especially if you go at it alone. You are constantly competing with others for the best gigs, and you're just as likely to die on the job as you are to get killed by another merc for messing up, cutting corners, or even stepping on the wrong toes. This is where fixers come in. In the world of Cyberpunk, fixers are the middlemen of Night City's underworld, acting as a go-between for mercs and clients who need jobs done. Whether it's sabotaging a rival, infiltrating someone's residence and stealing data, smuggling, or straight-up contract killings. Each district has its own fixer, and their influence and reputation often defines the kind of work available in that area. From espionage to rescues in the streets of Westbrook to resolving gang conflicts in the rougher parts of Watson, they maintain a vast network of contacts and information, using mercs like yourself to execute high-risk gigs while keeping their own hands clean. Fixers embody the city's relentless hustle. They are pragmatic, profit-driven, and politically savvy, balancing deals between corps, gangs, and freelancers. In many ways, they are the pulse of Night City's gig economy, dictating who rises, who falls, and who gets paid. However, not all fixers are cut from the same cloth. Some have noble intentions, while others lean into more questionable methods and motives. In this video, I will be ranking every fixer in Cyberpunk 2077's Night City, based on their character, history, gigs, and rewards. Keep in mind, these rankings are purely my personal opinion. Yours may be different, and that's perfectly fine. If you disagree, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your takes on Night City's fixers. Disclaimer, there will be spoilers for the main story of Cyberpunk 2077 and its DLC, Phantom Liberty. Now with all that being said, let's get right into the video. Starting with the man himself, Dexter Deshawn. Dexter Deshawn was known at one point as one of the best fixers to work for in Night City. However, this all changed in 2075 when, according to a certain maelstrom by the name of Simon Royce Randall, he ruined half of Pacifica. He went into hiding and then made a lot of powerful enemies. By 2077, he returned with a huge job offer for V and Jackie, the one that kickstarts the entire game's story. Dex always trusted his intuition over logic, which sometimes worked but often made him seem like a naive fool. Examples of this can be found in the main story, where he makes a deal with Maelstrom to acquire a Militech bot named the Flathead, of which he makes the decision to pay up front. Now, anyone with any level of reasoning can see why this was a very stupid idea. This would backfire spectacularly, making it so not only do we have to pay again, but we would have to pay using our own money, or depending on your choices, with Militech's money. Another example of his foolishness is his blind trust in Evelyn Parker. Now, why would an xCloud's doll know about the relic? Now, we know why, but we don't find out until after we meet with Evelyn and see the brain dance. And depending on how you did your quests, this could be after you get the Flathead from Maelstrom, meaning that 50% of the preparation for this job is already done by this point. Any self-respecting fixer would have seen this as a major red flag and avoided the job. But I think that's kind of the point. No respecting fixer and merc would ever touch this gig with 100-foot Sir John Fallistiff, which is why Dexter was chosen. He desires a quiet life, and to achieve that, he's going to need a very big win, and this gig was just too good to pass up. Now, with all that being said, the heist itself was decently planned. T-Bug was reliable, the equipment was solid, and the Excelsior package from Delamain literally saved V's life. If not for Saburo Arasaka's sudden arrival, it might have worked, which you can't really blame Dex for. Now, Dexter doesn't offer us any gigs in the main game because he quickly dies after the first one.
So let's you and me figure
which is the heist. Dexter Deshawn is someone who put all his points into cool. A charismatic dumbass. The reward for finishing his gig is a bullet to the head and a dead homie. D tier. Next up, we have Regina Jones. Regina is an ex-media that did work for various news stations and would later work for FTF Radio. She also mentored Max Jones, who we actually met in one of her gigs. Like all jobs in Night City, being a media is dangerous work, and whilst muckraking, she wound up in a lot of trouble and needed help. Fast. and so became indebted to Chinese officials and would spend a very long time paying off her debt. Her career would come to a stop later on as FTF Radio would be bought out by N54 News. Instead of working for a media megacorp, she decided to strike out on her own and become a fixer. Using her extensive list of contacts, she very quickly made a name for herself within the Watson district. Regina has the most gigs out of any of the fixers on this list, numbering in at a staggering 23 gigs. Now, most of her gigs involve stealthy infiltrations, such as breaking into gang hideouts and corporate facilities to steal data, sabotage equipment, or assassinating prominent members like the infamous Jotaro Shobo. All of these gigs can be completed within the first act of the game before you even talk to Jackie downstairs, making it so you can not only pay Vic for the new upgrades, but also enter Konpeki Plaza kitted out in new cyberware and gear. However, her main fixation, no pun intended, isn't on the gigs, but on something else far more serious. Regina, like all other fixers, has a personal agenda. She's very heavily invested in curbing the ever-increasing cyberpsycho problem, and as such will frequently enlist our help in taking down cyberpsychos using non-lethal means, as she believes wholeheartedly that a cure is possible. However, the NCPD and MaxTac would rather just kill them instead of risking capture, as told to us by MaxTac Division member Melissa Rory. Regina is also the owner of the AI Skippy, which you can find in an alleyway and, depending on your choices, will also be his killer.
You killed him! You killed Skippy!
Come on. It's just an algorithm, not a shred of consciousness.
He had a personality, quirks, mannerisms.
Practical, professional, yet driven by a desire to make the city safer, Regina Jones embodies the role of a fixer while still showing a rare degree of social conscience and compassion in Night City. As for her rewards, for completing her gigs, you receive an iconic axolotl cyberware, which reduces the cooldowns of all cyberware by a percentage after neutralizing an enemy. For completing her quest Psycho Killer, you receive a chrome compressor, which increases cyberware capacity, and a cyberware capacity shard. A tier. Wakako Okada. Wakako is one of the few fixers on this list with a pretty extensive backstory, and telling it will require me to jump between characters, so bear with me. Originally hailing from Japan, Wakako moved to Night City, where she would pursue medicine at Night City University, and it's at this very place where she would meet her very first husband, Hiroto Miyamoto. The Fourth Corporate War would occur shortly after she graduated. Luckily, she and her husband would survive this horrifying event, and Wakako would start working for Kuroshi as a medtech and would live a pretty normal and happy life. Wakako was childhood friends with a man by the name of Hayato Nakagawa, a very high-ranking member of the Tiger Claws. After an engagement was called off between Hayato and his lover Ryoko Fujiwara, Wakako and her husband would act as liaisons for them, allowing for both of them to keep in contact with each other. After Hayato's adoptive father passes away, Hayato would be involved in a dispute over inheritance. His enemies would target his friends, and in the ensuing events, Wakako and her husband would be attacked, with Wakako being the only survivor. After the dispute was settled, Hayato would go on to lead the Tiger Claws and provide for Wakako in her husband's stead. This in turn would make Wakako a member of the Tiger Claws, whether she wants it or not. Wakako became a close friend and confidant of Ryoko, Hayato's now wife. By 2045, Wakako would be offered to work for Ryoko's company instead of Kuroshi, but Wakako would decline, instead becoming a fixer based in Westbrook's Japantown district. As a fixer, she rose to be very well known, and earned the moniker Lady of Westbrook Estate. She would also be the person that helped siblings Pilar and Rebecca get into the mercenary life, and would hire David Martinez and his crew to infiltrate Totentons to rescue someone. She's also the one that gave them Julio, who made an explosive impression on the crew. Wakako would have multiple husbands, who would all die, some in dubious circumstances, and as such has many kids who would become very prominent high-ranking members within the Tiger Claws. However, she makes sure that they are kept strictly in line so they don't do something dumb enough to become the target of a gig from another fixer. Sadly, she would lose her grandchild to Arasaka, which would cause her to disdain the Megacorp. Despite her very close ties to the Claws, she doesn't have any real attachment to them from the perspective of her job as a fixer. not minding you killing important members of the Tiger Claws, as in her own words, only the stupid and greedy would fall to such an ignominious fate. That being said, she still does work to protect the Claw's interests, whether that be due to loyalty or some other hidden agenda. As for gigs, hers numbers in at 8, 9 if you count Cinnamon. Her gigs tend to be on the more brutal side, as she rarely asks you to take the non-lethal approach, tasking you with assassinations and revenge jobs. Not all her gigs are like that though. She will send you on missions to check up on associates to make sure they are okay, and save them if needed. This seems to be more for protecting her personal interests, however, than her being a thoughtful and caring grandmother character. By 2077, she would operate out of a pachinko parlor in Jig Jig Street, becoming well respected and feared within the community. She embodies sharp wit, tradition, and ruthless pragmatism, all while maintaining her refined, almost grandmotherly demeanor. Calculating and utterly unsentimental, viewing mercenaries as useful tools rather than partners, Wakako represents a dangerous mix of elegance and ruthlessness that defines Night City's fixers. As for rewards, for completing her gig, she gives you the iconic katana Byako, with the iconic modifier that increases melee attack range by 1 meter, bleed chance by 10%, and allows the player to leap towards an enemy. Alongside that, the user gains a 10-second increase to attack speed and removes the pause between combo attacks whenever you neutralize an enemy with the katana, turning you into a literal blender. I am placing her in S tier. Wait, wasn't she the one that sold Evelyn to the scavs?
Oh, fuck's sake.
A tier. Next on our list is Dino Dinovic. Now, Dino is a very polarizing character for me. You see, when I was doing research for this character, I already had his placement in mind from the interactions we have with him in the game. But as I've gotten to learn more about Dino, my placement for him has fluctuated quite a bit. As I delve into his character, you'll understand what I mean. Rocker Boy turned fixer, Dino Dinovic is based in the city center, also known as Corpo Plaza. As a rocker boy, he plays bass for a band by the name of Glory Hole Bandits. Now, despite selling all of their tickets, nobody can say that they've actually heard him play, which might just be a joke on how he's a bassist and you rarely hear the bassist. He also claims to have seen Samurai live and is an apparent contact of Carrie Uridine. In the 2070s, Dino learned about a valuable shard that was in the Mox's possession, and he sent his girlfriend Kaylee to infiltrate them and steal the shard. The situation, however, went completely tits up, and Kaylee returned with the shard and a maelstrummer by the name of Screw. Screw was there with his crew to steal the very same shard Dino was after, but after things got complicated, he betrayed his own crew and saved Kaylee's life. As a show of gratitude, Dino offered to pay him 10% of the sale and had Doc, yes, that same Doc from Edgerunners, patch him up. However, Dino would later overhear Screw and his girlfriend talk about killing him. He would tell them that he's gonna be back with the money, but instead made a deal with Maelstrom, that he would return Screw to them and give Maelstrom half of the sale money. He would give them Kaylee as an insurance, but instead of taking her back after the deal was done, he just left her there to be killed, showing that Dino may be more ruthless than we initially thought. By 2077, Dino operates out of his bar Electric Orgasm, where he has an undercover FIA agent as a bouncer. He has the least amount of gigs in the game, numbering in at only 5, which makes it so you don't interact with him as much as the other fixers. His gigs involve data theft, sabotage, and hit jobs, preferring stealth over brutality. Now, the problem with Dino as a character that I mentioned made it hard for me to place him is this tidbit of information I found regarding one of his gigs. In A Lack of Empathy, you are tasked with entering a club named Empathy, and uploading malware to their net to mess up the club's operations because one of the club's co-owners, Adam, screwed over the other co-owner, Larry. By uploading this malware, you ensure that the club cannot operate without Larry being brought back in. Dino accepts this job from Larry, with the condition that he gets a cut of the club's monthly income. However, it looks like Dino was trying to get this same cut from Adam. As you can read from one of the terminals, Dino threatened Adam, saying that he better get his eds or Adam is gonna get his ass beat. In this same terminal, you can also read that this club sells illegal brain dances from the disgusting father and son duo, Gottfried and Frederick. The same duo that you encountered and hopefully took out during one of Regina's gigs. This means that Dino Dinovic is not only profiting off of the club, but off of those very XBDs involving content that I cannot mention on this video. It's very likely that Dino knows about this club's dealings and what these XBDs contain, making Dino not only a ruthless fixer, but a scumbag as well. Dino Dinovic, unlike some of the more ruthless fixers, Dino has a friendly and upbeat personality, often greeting V with his casual charm and lighthearted banter. However, this hides his more compromised moral compass that reflects the darker aspects of Night City's underworld. As for rewards, if you complete all 5 of his gigs, you get rewarded with a nice Quadra Type 66, named Bullet, a reference to one of the cars in the movie, Bullet. With Dino having such a small amount of gigs, all while being in the smallest district in Night City, it makes it so you can complete these gigs in rapid succession soon after starting Act 2 and get a really nice car. I was originally going to put him at C tier, but due to how easy it is to complete his gigs and the rewards you receive, I'm putting him in B. Or at least I was until I learned everything else, specifically that XBD shit, so now he's back in C tier. Now I have a lot to say about the next person on this list. Sebastian Ibarra, also known as Padre or Father, is one of the more well-connected and respected fixers in Night City, depending on who you ask. Operating primarily in Haywood, he is a deeply religious man with strong ties to his community, and some also say to the Juarez cartel. He was a member of the Valentinos and their priest. That was until he found himself involved in a massacre at Motocielo, of which he was one of the few survivors. After this ordeal, he decided to become a fixer, seeing it as a more noble calling. Padre is a highly respected and feared man within the Valentinos, and as a fixer, mainly lined up jobs exclusively for them and the people of Haywood, but later would expand his dealings to others, even to 6th Street, which may bring up the question of his loyalties, or if he's simply gone soft. Padre seems to do things according to his own personal code of honor and ethics. He does not openly support any of the known gangs or factions. All he's interested in is maintaining the balance of power within Night City. Or so it seems. As for gigs, they number in at 11, and are some of the more interesting ones you can do, as they sometimes shed a light onto some of the more shadier parts of Night City's dealings. As in the gig On a Tight Leash, you enter just trying to find information on why the NCPD dropped an investigation on a Valentino by the name of Jose Luis, and by the end up discovering a plot that Arasaka plans to have Jose attack an Arasaka facility dressed as Militech to spark a conflict between the two corps. Padre also seems to know more than he lets on about this, as with a high enough reflex that you can call him out on it. It's intrigue like this that, in my opinion, put his gigs above the others. It's also through one of these gigs, mainly the gig Psychofan, that you unlock Johnny's pants. Where the interest in Padre lies is not just in his gigs, but his character. As I said before, he is an ex-Valentino member and their priest. But on closer inspection, it appears that he isn't as loyal to them as you might expect, and a lot more sketchy. Like Wakako having ties to her gang, Padre has ties to his, the Valentinos, and is rooted within the community. But as you can see from his gigs, they often involve screwing over the Valentinos more so than helping them and protecting their interests. A stark contrast to Wakako's gigs. It's due to this fact that I believe the Valentinos are starting to become frustrated with him, although they won't openly admit this. Padre has on occasion mentioned his dislike for the newer generation of Valentinos, saying they lack respect and loyalty, which usually would come off as grumpy old man yells at cloud. However, if you take in the context of the gig Bring Me the Head of Gustavo Orta, it seems that this dislike stretches beyond just simple grumpy grumblings. In Bring Me the Head of Gustavo Orta, you are tasked with killing high-ranking Valentino member Gustavo Orta, a relative of the Valentinos leader Campo Orta, who is responsible for the hospitalization of Martha Frakes, the daughter of a 6th Street leader. Now, before I continue with this gig, if you took part in Jackie's Ofrenda, you will actually meet these two people and you'll find this encounter quite interesting, as Martha is not going by Martha Frakes, but instead Martha Young. and she and Gustavo seem to be together, as in a relationship. Now, wait a minute. Aren't they sworn enemies and rivals, being one is a Valentino and the other is 6th Street? It's a classic Romeo and Juliet tale. Two members of rival families fall in love and try to hide their relationship because if it went public, it would cause a shitstorm. And this is exactly what happens. Kind of. It turns out Gustavo isn't wholly responsible for Martha's hospitalization. 6th Street created an ambush where they attempted to assassinate Gustavo. However, Martha was with him when this happened, and since they were hiding their relationship and Martha was hiding her identity, 6th Street didn't know she'd be there, and because of this, she caught a bullet to the head and was hospitalized, being in a comatose state. Martha's father hires Padre to contract an assassin to kill Gustavo Orta. Padre, an ex-member of the Valentinos and their priest, accepted money from a 6th Street leader to kill a high-ranking Valentino who was the relative of the current leader of the Valentinos, Campo Orta. Remember when I said that the Valentinos are starting to become frustrated with Padre? What do you think they will do once they learn Padre had a hand in Gustavo's death? Nothing good, I can tell you that much. Now, what does this all have to do with Padre's disdain for the younger Valentinos, as I mentioned earlier? Well, this is more along the lines of a theory than fact, but hear me out. Gustavo is pretty young, considering. He's actually around the same age as Jackie, late 20s to early 30s, and is in a relationship with a 6th Street member, which Padre most likely knows about since he was at Jackie's ofrenda as well, keeping an eye on them from the upper floor. This gig goes beyond a simple contract killing. I personally believe Padre has beef with Gustavo Orta, seeing him as a thorn in his side and lacking loyalty to the Valentinos, as hypocritical that may be. Padre is trying to hold on to what power he has, and seeing as the newer generation Valentinos don't respect him, that power may be slipping, and this seems to be a sloppy attempt at maintaining it by taking out a potential enemy. Hell, Mama Wells seems to hold more respect in the newer gen Valentinos than he does. Then again, it is Mama Wells, and everybody loves Mama Wells, if not for her homemade chilaquiles. Sebastian Ibarra is a fascinating character, a paranoid yet dangerous man who works not only to maintain balance or to protect the community, but to maintain his seat of power. To many in Haywood, he's a father figure, someone who looks out for the locals and keeps order in a city where chaos is the norm. Yet, beneath that image lies a man shaped by years of dealing with gangs, corpos, and mercs, always balancing his piety with the harsh realities of Night City's underworld. As for rewards, for completing his gigs, you receive a pretty baller Liberty pistol named Seraph. Its unique modifier causes the gun to fire explosive rounds that do not ricochet. Each time you hit an enemy, it grants a 10% chance to apply a unique burn effect, which lasts for 5 seconds and can stack up to 10 times. This burn effect does not deal damage, but instead increases the damage you do through subsequent hits by 25%. S tier. Alright, next up on our list, Muammar El Capitan Reyes. Muammar Reyes, also known on the streets as El Capitan, is a fixer operating out of Santo Domingo. Before Muammar became a fixer, he was actually a corpo, interestingly enough. The specific corp he worked for is currently unknown. He would go on to leave the corporate life behind and instead become a fixer, due to him wanting to be the one that sets the rules instead. And just like Padre, I have quite a lot to say about this fixer. How exactly Muammar got his moniker El Capitan is debated. According to him, he earned it by helping people and received this title out of admiration. However, seeing how he operates, the name most likely was given to him in reference to how he tends to take a more leading role in comparison to other fixers, like running crews and organizing repo jobs. Being in the leading role isn't the only place where El Capitan differs from other fixers. Like Regina, Muammar's goals lean more on the altruistic side, with some caveats. Him choosing to operate out of Santo Domingo isn't just because he can make a lot of money here, although that is a factor. Muammar admires the people of Santo Domingo and their perseverance, despite being utterly neglected by the rest of Night City and its ruling elites. One of his goals is to give power back to the people, especially at the expense of corps that have wronged them, like Arasaka and Petrochem. To Muammar, the people of Santo Domingo are persistent, refusing to be deceived by gangs and corpos alike, which is why those gangs and corpos have not been able to take over the district. And yes, I'm aware that 6th Street technically runs the place, however, it's a lot more nuanced than that, and I'm not going to get into it because it'd add another hour to this already long video. In his own words, the people of Santo Domingo are real, and are the blood and guts of Night City. Muammar counts himself amongst these people. Like I mentioned earlier, there are some caveats with his altruism. As a fixer, his goals are first and foremost profit-oriented. If he chooses to help someone out, it's mainly because he sees an opportunity in it to boost himself, whether that be financially or morally in the eyes of others. A tactic that he uses quite often to create the image of someone who truly cares about the people. He tends to speak about his clients as if they are close friends. Whether or not it's a personality trait or him just playing around is hard to tell. Despite his dislike of megacorps and the NCPD, he isn't above taking them as clients if it suits his interests, or if the pay is simply too good to ignore. Muammar also seems to have a vengeful side, as whenever another gang tries to claim Santo Domingo, he is very quick to stamp them out, as they'll come between him and his business. Muammar is also one of the very few people who is still in contact with David Martinez's old crew, or what's left of them, namely Falco, as you can ask Muammar about them and he'll put you in contact with them. As for gigs, his number's in at 11. The types of gigs he offers range from stealing data from gangs and corps to helping out people in need, whether it be saving an NCPD officer who learned too much or getting someone severance pay. The reward for finishing his gigs is the Bloody Maria shotgun, an iconic variant of the M2038 Tactician. The iconic effect gives the weapon a 600% increased dismemberment chance, bleed chance by 20%, and increases the knockdown chance by 10%. And upon dismembering an enemy, crit chance is increased by 10%, with reload time being reduced by 6% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. That's a lot. Yeah, the name Bloody Maria is accurate. Now, despite everything I've said about him so far, where El Capitan really shines is really within the Phantom Liberty expansion, as he takes on a more important role for V and Santo Domingo. After Phantom Liberty dropped, Muammar became the de facto car salesman for V, through his auto fixer business where you can buy a multitude of vehicles. Before the expansion, you had to buy vehicles through various fixers and had to manually travel to their location in order to purchase them. However, now you can do so in one convenient place. Thanks, Muammar. In Dogtown, you may notice a green steering wheel icon. This is one of Muammar's repo targets, where you steal the vehicle and deliver it to a location in exchange for money, crafting specs, and a discount for the autofixer. Upon the first completion, you will meet Muammar, and he will explain his little side business to you. During this, you get introduced to Muammar's partner, an NCPD officer named Aiden Daniels. Daniels comes off as a major asshole, and, well, he is. However, like Muammar, he works hard to make life for the people in Santo Domingo more bearable. An interesting mix their partnership is, isn't it? A fixer and a cop. Anyways, once you complete enough repos, you will be included in Muammar and Daniel's great plan. You see, Arasaka has been dumping toxic waste into the Santo Domingo water supply, making it so if you don't have a working filter, you will get incredibly sick. And many children have died due to this. Muammar and Daniels' plan is to steal a massive truck full of medical equipment from Arasaka so that it can be used to help treat the people who have fallen ill. This is not a gig, mind you, that Muammar is taking on behalf of a client. Like Regina with the Cyber Psychos, this is a personal matter. Muammar is paying you out of his own pockets due to his genuine care for the people of Santo Domingo. Now, while this mission is technically not a gig, it is an extension of the repo jobs you do, which can be classified as gig-like, just like Regina's Cyber Psycho takedowns. The reward for finishing the Gig-esque questline is a custom-made Black Herrera outlaw named Wheeler, with built-in guns. Muammar El Capitan Reyes is a charismatic guy, who despite being a fixer, works for the interest of the common people. A man with a warm yet steeled heart. S tier. Next up on our list is Dakota Smith, also known as the Mad Coyote, which is a badass nickname, let's be real. She is a fixer operating out of the Badlands, specifically in her own garage just outside of Night City. As a nomad, she belongs to a clan, specifically the Aldecaldos. Now, despite being a nomad, she doesn't roam around with the Aldecaldos like the rest. instead preferring to stay in one place, which is also referred to as being a static. Now, her reasons for being a static I will go into a little bit later, but for now know that her being a static is actually to her benefit, as when you're working as a fixer, constantly moving around in a place as vast as the Badlands can be really hard for business, as clients will have difficulty getting a hold of you. Dakota also refers to statics as necessary, as they take care of those who come and go, which is understandable as the Badlands are very dangerous to those unfamiliar with the landscape and what dwells within it. Dakota is the eldest daughter of the Pomo tribe, a Native American tribe within California. This would make sense, as after the Unification War she seems to have gotten more in touch with her spiritual side, although not quite like the monks we see around Night City. However, evidence for this comes from Dakota herself, so we'll just have to take her at her word. Dakota comes off as the more honorable type, compared to all the fixers available in Night City, as according to her database entry, she has never gone behind anyone's back and is sure to wreak havoc on those that betray her, also treating those who choose to abandon their nomad clan with disdain, as seen with how she talks about those who do within the gigs she offers. If you pay close attention to her design, you will notice that she has an oxygen mask attached to a tank, and if you look at her bottom left side, you will notice that she has a tattoo with the words, "Already sold my kidney," with a scar on the other side. This may actually partly explain why she is a static in the first place, as she might not be able to travel long distances at all without it impacting her health. So her being a static is less of a noble choice to help others, and is more of a requirement for her physical health. This, however, is just speculation. Along with being honorable, she's also quite stubborn, as she is trying to get a techie by the name of Iris Tanner to work with her, despite Tanner on multiple occasions telling Dakota to eat shit, because she just hates working with fixers. Dakota is a very pragmatic, no-nonsense person who prefers to keep her dealings as professional as possible. But beneath that stoic exterior lies a fixer who understands the value of loyalty and resourcefulness, in a world where having friends is important and survival is never guaranteed. As for gigs, Dakota's numbers in at 9. However, due to the vastness of the Badlands, they are spread pretty far apart. They vary from rescue extractions and retrieving what was lost, whether that be people or vehicles. The reward for completing her gigs is the fuck-ass truck Thornton Mackinac Saguaro. High C tier. Alright, next up we have probably the most elusive and mysterious fixer on this list, and the one with the most unfortunate nickname, Mr.Hands. Mr.Hands, born Wade Bleeker, was a high-ranking corpo within Petrochem. However, after a sudden shakeup in upper management, Wade was to be sacrificed upon the altar of corporate shenanigans. Wade would actually survive this assassination attempt, and due to this, a bounty was placed on his head. Wade would have to go into hiding, and to escape his fate, he would go on to have multiple cosmetic surgeries to hide his identity, shedding his name to take on a new name, Mr. Hands. Mr. Hands would operate as a fixer within the district of Pacifica, which, thanks to ex-mayor Lucius Rhine, is now an independent district. This, alongside the existence of scavengers, voodoo boys, and Barguest, made Pacifica a place to be avoided if you value your life, ironically, making it a perfect place for Hands to hide and drum up some business. Mr. Hands is the only fixer to operate within Pacifica, undoubtedly due to the volatile nature of the district warding off competition. This is also where Hands' secretive nature comes in handy, as Hands wants to have as little interaction with the people he does business with, preferring to interact through calls and text instead of meeting in person. This is actually where Mr. Hands gets his namesake, as when you call him, on the display, the only thing you can see is his hands, and the rest of his body is engulfed in shadow. As a matter of fact, this is the only way a merc can get in contact with him. This is a survival tactic that has helped him maintain his position within Pacifica. Mr. Hands' goals seem to be more politically motivated than other fixers, wanting to have a hand in the politics surrounding Pacifica. Mainly Dogtown, as when you complete all his gigs and finish Phantom Liberty, Hands wants to install a puppet within the ruling government in Dogtown. His specific reasoning for this is unknown, however, due to his past as a high-ranking corpo and his general disposition, I wouldn't say it's anything good. This is also confounded by the fact that he is within the good graces of Kurt Hansen. showing up at the Black Sapphire, which is invite only. This would make sense as he is the only fixer in Dogtown and is well renowned and respected at that. There isn't much else to go on in terms of backstory for Mr. Hands. I mean, I could go on about the Unum Club. As for gigs, they number in at 1. Unless you have the Phantom Liberty expansion, where they now number in at 10. They range from espionage to hit jobs to rescues. Unlike Padre or Wakako, who operate from positions of stability, Mr. Hands thrives in instability, and his gigs show it. They're about navigating an environment where the NCPD, Corps, and most gangs have all pulled back, leaving a power vacuum that only someone like him can exploit. As for rewards, Mr. Hands gives V the Quadra-Sport R7 Sterling, a car you will undoubtedly crash trying to exit Dogtown. A tier. Next up, we have the legend herself, Rogue. Oh boy, this is gonna take a while, so grab your snacks and get comfortable. Rogue Amendiarez, born Rachel Amendiarez, was a very rebellious person who wanted to strike out on her own without dealing with the stiff hierarchy of gang life, and so decided to become a solo in Night City, shedding her name as Rachel and instead taking on the name Rogue. During her early days as a merc, she would get acquainted with and start a relationship with some random asshole rocker boy by the name of Johnny Silverhand. Although this relationship would end during 2011 as she would find out that Johnny was cheating on her. Dick move. By 2013, Rogue would be partnered with a nomad by the name of Santiago, with both being considered the best mercs in their time. The extent of their relationship is unknown, but it is highly hinted at by creator Mike Pondsmith that she is the mother of his kid, Trace Santiago. This has never been outright confirmed, but it is highly likely to be a thing. Johnny would ask both of them for their help in raiding Arasaka to save his girlfriend, Alt Cunningham. Despite Rogue's disdain for Johnny over their shared history together, she ends up agreeing to help, if not just to stick it to the corpse. This raid would end in failure, as Johnny would accidentally kill Alt by disconnecting her while she was separated from her body within the Arasaka subnet. About a year later, Rogue would have a brief hookup with Night City legend Morgan Blackhand, but not much would come of this relationship. The most controversial part of her history comes when she would be involved in another Arasaka raid that would end up becoming the Night City Holocaust. Now, there is a lot of information on this event from multiple sides, and it would take way too long to explain due to how dense it is, and seeing as Rogue's participation in this event isn't really that important, as she was just a hired gun at this point to help Johnny's team distract Arasaka forces. A plan that, by the way, was unbeknownst to them. However, all you have to know is she was involved in the raid that led to both Arasaka towers and the entire corporate city center being reduced to rubble, and everyone in the surrounding area becoming instantly killed, with over 2,000 people being instantly incinerated by the blast, and over 500,000 being fatally injured, with another 250,000 dying from the aftermath over the next few weeks and even months. This blast would cause the sky to turn red with particulate matter for 2 years. Rogue and the majority of her team would escape the blast mostly intact, except for Johnny as he got split up. At some point before 2045, Rogue would end up in a car crash that would severely injure her to the point where surgeons and rippers wouldn't be able to fix all the internal damage, even with cyberware, causing Rogue to retire from merc work and instead become a fixer. Rogue would also purchase the bar known as the Afterlife, but would end up relocating the bar to Watson. Over the next few decades, Rogue's reputation as a top-tier solo and fixer would go on to inspire others into becoming mercs and fixers. And by 2077, she earned the moniker Queen of the Afterlife, and would be regarded as the best fixer in Night City, even surrounding herself with the best of the best. Nyx would be hired as the Afterlife's top netrunner, while Andrew Wayland's son, Crispin Wayland, would be chosen as Rogue's top solo and bodyguard that would accompany her during big gigs. In 2077, Rogue takes a major role within the story, being the one to get us information on Anders Hellman and getting us in touch with Nomad Panam Palmer. She's very important to Johnny, as if we do his questline, she becomes one of the primary characters within the side story, as well as helping us raid Arasaka one last time to reach Mikoshi to split Johnny and V. Which will actually be the second time Johnny got split at Arasaka. Okay, I'll stop. Now, with all this being said, there is one small problem with Rogue. As a fixer, she offers gigs like all the others, but 3 are only available by completing all the gigs from other fixers, specifically Wakako, Padre, and El Capitan. with the fourth one being added as DLC, meaning she only has 4 gigs, landing her at the bottom in terms of gigs available even under Dino. The worst part is that you don't get a reward for completing all of the gigs outside of the normal cash and XP. As a character, Rogue is really cool and fascinating. However, as a fixer, she sucks. There's no real reason to do her gigs outside of being a completionist. At least with Dino, they were all in a small district and you receive a nice car at the end. With Rogue, you get nothing. And if you ask her why she doesn't give you any more gigs, her answer is that you fucked up the Compeki job with Dex. Despite, completing every single gig in the city from 7 different fixers, and probably becoming the most well-known merc in the city at that time. As for what she offers for gigs, you have shit like finding a bootleg record of Samurai whilst retrieving a car owned by the son of one of the members of Samurai, to helping out a Kangtao Corpo by retrieving some highly classified corporate documents for him, and possibly saving him from being whacked by Kangtao. As a character, she belongs in S tier, but as a fixer, she belongs in D tier. So I'm gonna have to meet in the middle and place her in B tier. Oh, before we move on to the next fixer, I have one last fun fact for you guys that I found out while looking up Rogue. Rogue canonically dated Mike Pondsmith. In Cyberpunk 2077, the radio host for Mortal Rock Radio is Maximum Mike, who was Mike Pondsmith's in-game self-insert and persona, dating all the way back to the Cyberpunk 2020 tabletop game, where he would be the one giving you, as a reader, direct advice on how to play the game. In 2077, Maximum Mike states that he used to date Rogue back when she was still hurting for Johnny, but drifted apart due to work. Fucking Chad. Last on our list, we have a fixer so feared and so infamous that he is often forgotten by the player base out of fear. This fixer can only be encountered if you pick a very specific life path for V. Kirk Sawyer. Kirk spawned in Night City one day and was able to get a home in Pacifica, and not long afterwards decided to become a fixer, often operating out of Mama Wells' bar, El Coyote Kojo. Kirk would constantly claim that he wasn't good with drug cartels and would often use this tidbit of information to threaten everyone under his thumb, earning him quite the reputation as someone not to be messed with. Or, more accurately, someone not to mess with, because as we all know, Kirk is full of shit. Possibly the most pathetic fixer on this list, Kirk gets his profit from acting as a loan shark, getting others into debt and then threatening them with physical harm if they don't pay up when he wants them to. Kirk would be followed around by his personal bodyguard Big Joe, who could go toe-to-toe with Adam Smasher if he wasn't so goddamn hungry all the damn time. I'm joking, by the way, this lard-ass can't do shit. We first meet Kirk in the Street Kid life path, where Pepe informs us that he borrowed some eddies from Kirk and that Kirk is threatening to kneecap him if he doesn't pay up, stating that Kirk is in with the cartels.
Don't pay by tomorrow, said he'd bust my legs. He don't joke about that stuff. Got cartels in his corner.
We go up to negotiate on Pepe's behalf because he's our boy. Kirk tells us that he will wipe Pepe's debt if we can clip a Rayfield erudite from some high-ranking Arasaka Corpo from him. We agree, and Kirk gives us some whack-ass hacking device he bought off of fucking Wish.Temu and sends us on our way to get beaten to a pulp by some cops, and that's where we meet our best friend Jackie Wells. So maybe Kirk is good for something. This is where we learn from Jackie that Kirk was bullshitting about being in good with the cartel, and that Kirk is due a visit from you and Jackie. Kirk's dumbass escapades doesn't end here, as after Jackie's ofrenda, Kirk will reach out to us about a new gig. Us being the type of dumbass to grab random shards off the street and insert it into our heads, accept this job. Kirk says that there's a shipment of experimental Militech cyberware located in the back of a van he wants you to steal. However, it was not Militech cyberware, but instead, bootleg samurai merch. What a shock. When we return, we will find him and Big Joe dead, having been executed by the Valentinos, who, by the way, actually have ties to the cartel. The Valentinos were the ones to set up Kirk with this false intel, leading him into a trap to be killed. Kirk Sawyer, a Kirkland brand fixer who's probably the biggest fuck-up on the list, beating out Dexter Deshawn, because at least Dexter had a level of competence. I'm sorry, Kirk, but you died trying to boost bootleg samurai merch, thinking it was Militech cyberware. I can see why you became a loan shark, because being a fixer was not for you, little bro. Fuck Kirk tier. Bitch, fuck out of my face. And with that being said, this concludes the video. like I said in the beginning, this is all my personal opinion. If you personally disagree with my placements, then please let me know down below. I'd genuinely love to hear your opinions on which fixers should go where and for what reason. Tier list videos on YouTube have been done to death. They are a trend that everyone knows about and has most likely done themselves to some capacity. And despite all that, I still wanted to take a shot at creating one myself, as not only did I think it would be fun, but the world of Cyberpunk fascinates me to no end, and I wanted an excuse to talk about it. If this video was something you guys enjoyed, then please let me know by commenting it down below or just by hitting that like button. I don't know what my next video would be, but if you guys have any suggestions, then also put them down in the comments below. With that being said, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.